It's indeed a privilege to be here in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's a beautiful city, and how many of you are actually from the area? Okay, so people are otherwise coming from other parts of Canada or the US. How about Canadians? Everyone? Okay, great. Well, my name is Peter Bell, and I'm going to be spending the better part of the next hour and a half walking you through what science is helping us understand about autism, and hopefully will someday help us solve the puzzle of it. I will do that through a variety of discussions and talks, and at the end I'll certainly leave some time for Q&A if we all make it that far. I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about my own journey through autism and my direct experience with it. I'll then talk a little bit about kind of the history of autism from my perspective and how we got to where we are today. We'll go over some of the strategic frameworks that are being applied to understanding autism better through science, specifically what we do at Autism Speaks, as well as what the US government is currently doing in terms of the research agenda, which hopefully will be a good model and insightful for those of you who are north of the American border. I'll talk also about some of the more recent developments, kind of the top 10 research events that have occurred in the past year, which hopefully will be exciting to you as it is to us. I'll talk briefly about where we're going beyond the science and some of the things that hopefully will be done to help improve the community and the outlook for our children that are affected by autism. And then I'll finish off on just a brief story of how we're trying to turn hope more into belief. So let me begin by telling you a little bit about my own story with autism. I am married to a wonderful woman by the name of Liz, and we have 3 children. Our oldest, Tyler, just turned 16, and he is the one in my family that is affected by autism. I also have a younger son, Derek, who is 14, and a little girl, Avery, who's not so little anymore, who's 10. Prior to getting involved in the autism community professionally, I spent 12 years at a small little healthcare company in the United States called Johnson & Johnson. I worked for the division that made Tylenol, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with because I know it's a successful pain reliever and fever reducer up here in Canada as well. I left that in 2004 and became the president and CEO of Cure Autism Now, which was an organization that was started in 1995, based in Los Angeles. It was started by 2 parents, actually both of whom were in the Hollywood business. One was a producer, the other one was a set designer. And they started the organization after their now 17-year-old son was diagnosed with autism, I think in around 1993, 1994, and they started Cure Autism Now, and I'll briefly touch on that a little bit later. Also, as you probably know, Cure Autism Now merged with Autism Speaks actually just 2 years ago in February of 2007. And I currently serve as the Executive Vice President for Program and Services, which basically means I'm responsible for our family services, our advocacy, and also our autism treatment network, and I serve as an advisor to our science program, and I recently took on responsibility for all of our communications and awareness, at least on an interim basis. So I do have my hands in a lot of things going on at Autism Speaks these days. It's just to give you a visual. This is my family. I know it's hard to see, and if you all want to move forward, you're welcome to, but this is my family. Believe it or not, my middle son is the tall blonde to my, I guess on my right there. Tyler is in the green shirt, and then my wife and Avery are the other 2 women there. So my journey with autism started 13 years ago in February of 1996. Ironically, it did happen this month when we took our son to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It was just after his 3rd birthday. And how we got there is that we, at his 2-year well check, said to his pediatrician, you know, he doesn't seem to have as much language as the other kids in his playgroup and so forth, and is that something we should be concerned about? And he did a few things during the examination and concluded that in his mind, Tyler was a developmental star. And again, this is at his 2nd-year birthday. He had close to 100 words in his vocabulary. He was starting to string things together. If a plane went over, he would point up and said, "Plane," and look at us, join attention. So it just was that he didn't have as much language as the other kids seemed to have at that age. About 2 months after that exam, he developed the chickenpox, the actual live virus chickenpox. And from there onward, he seemed to regress significantly. He lost virtually all the language that he did have. His behaviors became very challenging, and it was far beyond the terrible twos, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But Tyler's development seemed very normal. And I have 3 pictures here, and I chose these for very obvious reasons that hopefully will become clear in a second. The first picture here is Tyler at 12 months, and the reason I included this is that he has a bottle there, and in that bottle is cow's milk. And for whatever reason, when he turned a year and they basically said it's okay to start giving him regular milk, his health seemed to deteriorate. It was the first time he got ear infections and a number of other things. And so for whatever reason, it seemed that he had a tough time taking on cow's milk. The shot of him here at 18 months, I don't know about you, but does anybody see anything unusual about that other than he doesn't have a shirt on? He has a very large head. He was born with a head circumference in the 90th percentile, and by this time, when he was 18 months, he was over what would consider to be normal. But again, you know, they just said he has a big head. Well, we've now come to find out that having larger than normal heads is a potential sign that there might be something wrong in terms of autism. And the 22-month shot, the reason I included this is that he's carrying these 2 fish paddles. And the reason I included that is that he had this tendency around this time to always wanting to have something in his hand. If it weren't something like this, it was actually a plastic hammer that he had from one of those little tool benches, play school tool benches and so forth. And again, we never thought anything of it, but it was something that became a perseveration for him. And so there probably were signs prior to that 2-year well check that, if you go back and look retrospectively, might have been early warning signs. But based on everyone else's clinical judgment, there was nothing to be alarmed about. The other thing that I think is very interesting are these photographs. Are you familiar with Duplos, which are basically large-sized Legos? Tyler, at around 20 months, if you could see from this picture, had very sophisticated play skills. In fact, he had a kindergartner teacher who said, you know, his play skills are amazing for a child his age. You know, my kids who are 5 or 6 years old don't even do this kind of thing. And he had these elaborate schemes and colors and had all sorts of games that he would play with the animals and the cars and things like that. And then in the second picture, you can see he's starting to stack towers, and they kept getting higher. At 26 months, those towers started to become the same color, and they didn't have the elaborate schemes, and he didn't have the trucks going here and there and so forth. And then at 28 months, it came down to one color. So I think these pictures are an interesting visualization of how his autism was manifesting itself during that second year.